Michelle, how you doing?
I am doing great. How are you?
Well, not too bad for a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I found you on Facebook, I believe, and
Yes.
you help people with disabilities. Now, is it specific ones?
We I deal with a broad spectrum of students with disabilities. I work as an itinerant para with students in 7th grade this year in a middle school. And I go into the regular ed classes and have some learning support classes with a learning strategies like a resource room. But my students, they come out that I work with are in a general ed classroom, and a lot of them they have a variety of disabilities. Most of them, some of them have learning disabilities like I do. Other ones have autism. We have ones that might have mental health with anxiety. Other students might have emotional needs as well. So they might have some disabilities that affect maybe their behavior. We also will get students that might just have maybe not a disability, but they might be recovering from maybe a fall, so they might have be on crutches, or you might even have students that, as I said, they don't have a disability per se, but they do have a condition that they would require a 504 plan. So we might get students that might have diabetes. We also get students that are visually impaired, deaf as well. So I mean, we get to see a lot of different students with a lot of different needs to come in the classroom.
Hmm. And what got you into that line of work?
I work in a school, so it's the education field.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, all right. So you became a teacher, and then you decided to go into the special ed area, correct?
Right. I'm a teacher's aide or a paraprofessional. So yeah, I decided to do that and to be able to work with them.
Well, I got to tell you that sounds like a thankless job. 'Cause I was an ESE kid in from, like, 1st
Right.
grade up until I graduated high school because of those of dyslexia,
Mhm.
and as I've mentioned on the show before, but, I was able to overcome that, but I think you called it dyscalculia is worth the I can't really pronounce that too well, but and that's, like, basically dyslexia for math, right? Or is that something else?
Well, in a way, it, it is a learning disability, the same way that you would have dyslexia. But I don't see numbers backwards.
Okay.
But I do have difficulty with how they work. So I do not know all my fact families. I have a hard time with understanding how numbers work in a problem. Even if you give me a calculator,
Yeah.
I'm I can see the numbers on on an analog clock, and I can see the big hand and the little hand, but my brain can't comprehend what that means. So I use my digital watch. I also have trouble with my left and my right, telling the difference between those two. So those are some things that really do come with having that.
And what do you do to overcome those challenges?
Well, one of the things for me is I look for things that work. So if I can't tell time on the face of an analog clock, I have my Fitbit. So that not only counts my steps, but it helps me to be able to see what time it is. I'll have digital displays in the kitchen. So that's one of the biggest things too. So I know on my clocks what time it is. I also um, I really we've had to do accommodations all throughout school. I had specialty instruction. I had things such as the test read aloud to me. For me, avoiding math is really the way that, I'm able to make it. I in my school, I everybody knows, all the kids and the staff will know or will soon find out I cannot help out with math, so I think it's that advocating. And also, I do other little things, like I have my phone, which is great for telling, how much I have to give for a tip. That I think that's helpful as well. Being able to do things online to know how much I'm spending sometimes helps too. So it's learning to find those solutions to those issues that come up because they will present themselves. And sometimes with having the dyscalculia, I have other disabilities, but it all comes from the same source. So they all kind of work to create difficulties, and it's just finding those solutions.
Yeah, and and you have a very
Mhm.
good outlook on it, and it's also good
Mhm.
if you have a good support system and
Right.
people in your life that really help. It's always good too. how old were you when you found out that you had I don't wanna butcher the name again. You know? Yeah,
Right. I was officially diagnosed with a learning disability whenever I was in kindergarten, and they didn't call it dyscalculia then. It was more of a blanket term that they used. But the school staff who evaluated me, they knew I was not going to be a mathematician by the time I was 5 or 6. That was already determined. And that really started getting the diagnosis and having the specialty services and having all the accommodations. And a lot of that, along with my family, is why I was able to be successful in my life.
yeah, for sure. This is not a knock on anybody particular, but I feel that as an ESE kid myself, sometimes they just get forgotten, you
Right.
know, by the system itself, you know, and then like I remember I've said it on the show not that long ago that I had a teacher, it was a no, not a teacher, it was a guidance counselor. I wanted to be a massage therapist, and because I was in, you know, these special education classes, she's like, "You're not smart enough to do that."
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
it's like, who are you to say that to anybody? You know, let alone a student, you know? So,
Right.
yeah. Mhm.
And I've had that experience myself. I remember whenever I was in 10th grade, we were talking about what am I going to do after school? And I knew that I wanted to work with kids in a school setting, go to college. I didn't quite know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do that. But I was not naive in the fact that it was going to be tough for me. And I can remember I had a learning support teacher who said, "Well, I don't think you can do that because of your math um, difficulties," and she suggested a trade school. Well, looking back on that, the trade school would have been 10 times harder than college. I certainly couldn't drive an ambulance because I'm not able to drive at all.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would want me cutting their hair or coloring it, and I certainly don't think I'd be that great with cooking or doing any of the other trades. So I think that would have been a lot harder for me. And I decided, okay, I'm going to go to college. Well, I had more difficulties with other people with the stigma. I had a a psychiatrist who told me that I was most likely not going to go beyond community college, and I decided I'm gonna still, I'm gonna go and do this. I was discouraged, and then I faced even more of that, stigma. I had peers that thought disability accommodations were cheating, like getting the test read aloud or extra test time, and I had a professor who, whenever I asked for a calculator in her class, she said, "Oh, no, we use our brains in this class, not calculators." And I even had an advisor who told me I was going to have limited job choices once I graduate. So it was really discouraging. And even after I went to university and I was able to get the bachelor's degree, I needed to have transportation services. So I called, OBR, and I had to arrange for another evaluation. And I can remember they were asking me in this eval, "Well, what are things you want to do with your life?" And I thought, well, I want to write news articles. I want to prepare pictures. And they said, "Well, she wants to do all of this, but based upon her low scores, we're just not even going to consider that." And I find it so amazing that I do have a blog. I have had articles published. I've had pictures that have been featured. And the only thing I really can't do is math and drive. And I'm
Yeah.
not great with my hands. They did find out I have limited hand dexterity.
Well, you know, it just goes to what we were talking about a minute ago is that this, like you said, stigma, and they don't, I just wish people wouldn't write people off so quickly,
Right,
you know, and give somebody a chance because you're a bright person, you know what I mean? You know, and everybody's got limitations starting in life, whether it's a learning disability or financial or whatever, but
right,
give that person a hand, you know, or
mhm,
at least give them the tools to try and make it better. You
right.
know, I don't know if somebody saying that you can't do something because of X is helpful, or let me rephrase that. Do you think that comes from a place of them trying to be truthful, or do you think it's a place of being mean?
Be a little bit of both. I think that depending on the person, I think a lot of times people wanna be truthful, and sometimes we don't quite know how to say something, and it's not to take away that it's not gonna have difficulties, it's not gonna be challenging, there's not gonna be situations that are gonna come up because there certainly are things that
Huh?
happen. But
Yeah.
sometimes I think people might just be mean too, as well, if they don't like the person or they think or they get the wrong impression about that. So I think it's both, but I like to think that a lot of people, especially those who work with disabilities. I mean, they're nice and they're nice people, but they see so much maybe of what could happen in the reality that sometimes we get so focused on that that we don't start thinking, okay, what are some of the possibilities? Because nobody has that crystal ball to look into the future and to know what someone really is going to do. And it doesn't mean that everybody will be successful, but I think everybody should have the opportunity to try. And I also think too, people with disabilities know what generally know what they're good at and what they're not. I knew that becoming a certified teacher was not going to be an option for me or a wise one because number one, I could not pass some of the certification tests even to get into the college of education, and some of the courses I couldn't do. And I thought to myself, well, why would I want to set myself up for failure? Let's look at maybe some other options I can do that are really similar, and that really worked for me. And I even had people that were wondering why I didn't become the certified teacher, and I had to defend those ones as well, and be like, "Well, no, that isn't a great option for me." So, I think sometimes it comes from a great place too, but I think sometimes we have to really be careful on how we say it and to present it as, "Okay, if you wanna go out and do that, that's great, but maybe here's a backup plan just in case it doesn't work."
Yeah, and I think that's a better approach. I really do. I
Mhm.
think instead of saying, "Well, you're not smart enough to do that," that's
Yeah.
just it's defeating and deflating, and then it makes the person think that they're not good for anything.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And they're not gonna be a productive member of society.
Mhm.
So, I don't talk about him much, but my stepfather,
Mhm.
he left us and he died in 2008,
Mhm.
and he was born with, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but he
Mhm.
had Bell's palsy. He had a frozen back, so he couldn't bend
Mm.
he only bent at the hips, he couldn't bend at the waist, and then he had, his Achilles tendons were too short. So his are,
Wow.
his physical limitations, right? So he had the Achilles tendon lengthening procedure, but he didn't do his rehab, so it didn't take. But I'll tell you what he did. He worked 30 years in Florida for the Department of Transportation. And
Oh
it
my goodness.
yeah, and it wasn't like he wasn't behind a desk. He was running heavy equipment. He was a supervisor. And he worked. I remember he would leave at 4:30 in the morning, come home
Mhm.
at 5 in the evening, covered head to toe in dirt.
Oh my
You know what I
goodness.
mean? So, I mean, it can be done. So, I think that it's all a
Mhm.
matter of one, like yourself, willpower,
Mhm.
and two, just the drive to do it. Which I guess is the
Right.
same as willpower, but it's also I think you overcoming what you've overcame. It's a great story, and it's never easy when to overcome adversity.
Right.
So how do you relax? What do you do for fun?
I like to read. That's always something I always have enjoyed doing from the time I was young. I love to write. Writing has always been really healing for me and really powerful. That I've always enjoyed. I can remember when I was a child, my dad finding a story about a dinosaur that I wrote when I was in second or third grade, and he said, "Wow, this is really good." And that just really encouraged me because I didn't think I was good at anything to that point. And my dad would read me a story every night when I was little. I also love to work out. I love going on walks and taking pictures of flowers. So I love photography and going to the gym. I really enjoy doing that. Non-competitive sports, that
Yeah,
sort of thing. But I really, and I also, my husband and I love to travel too. We love to go to different museums and different gardens and just be able to go out and enjoy that time together.
yeah, absolutely. Having an outlet and
Hmm.
something creative, to do I think it's essential for balance in your life. If you don't,
Right.
if you're just constantly doing stuff that annoys you, it's not good, right? How do you think that the school system could figure out a way to treat these kids better?
I think one of the biggest ways is to have a customized approach. A lot of times we get so focused in on either we got to have these curriculum goals. We have to put everybody on grade level. Everybody has to follow this curriculum and everybody's going to do well with it, and not every student does. And I just think that there's not enough customized approaches for students. I mean, I realize it can't be like a one-on-one for everybody, but I think sometimes that could help just to have, well, what does each student need? What do the students in my program need? And to really go from that level. And I also think it's focusing on what kids like and what they're good at. I think sometimes if we can find out what their interests are in classes and we can maybe use that, that can really help to motivate students. They're going to want to learn. They're going to be excited to come to class because that's something that they're interested in. And kids also like things that they're good at too. I know I had a lot of teachers who knew that I was really good with speaking in front of the class. And that's one of the things they might have utilized in the room, or they knew I was good with writing or reading. And that sometimes I learned that if I took classes where I could read or I could write or do a project rather or do some research rather than take a bunch of tests and quizzes, I was going to have a better score. And people would always tell me, "Well, why'd you take that person? You know, that's a lot of work. You should have. Why didn't you do good in that class where all you had was a midterm, a final, some quizzes, and maybe like a project here and there?" And I never did well in those classes. That was more work for me. So I think if we can really find what students are interested in and develop programs and plans that are based on their needs and not just on a whole blanket level success benchmarks, I think that would be a good start.
Yeah, I had a guy on the show a while back. His name was
Mhm.
Daniel Baker, and he talks about gamification
Mhm.
and how like for me when I'm at work and I have to do education, it is one of I would rather watch paint dry because it is the most one of the most boring things ever. Because I mean, and my hats off to the people that make it because it's not easy. Like learning about hand washing or something, it's just hard to make that interesting. Well, what his approach, and I think and I don't know if it would help with what we're
Mhm.
talking about, but I'm going to talk about it. It's making something unfun fun by turning it into a game. 'Cause
Yep.
especially if people are do you think do you think there's room for that and with kids with disabilities, or do you think I guess it would obviously be dependent upon what what their diagnosis is, right?
Right. I think sometimes you can make things a game, especially when I mean, I know when you deal with younger children, you can make things
Mhm.
into like a game with them. Like, okay, if they're really cool, let's play the quiet game if they're really loud. And they can do that a little easier. Um, I think sometimes when we have older kids, we might just have to be like, give them maybe some real world examples. Okay, like you're going to be going out into the world, and this is why it's important that we advocate or how you know how to do that because my students are one day going to leave me and but their disabilities are going to be there so they really need to know how to do that. So I think sometimes it just really depends on the age and if you can find ways to make things fun. I remember there was a student I had a couple years ago that had some behavior issues
Mhm.
and but if you got him in front of the classroom, he could do a great presentation. But it was just trying to get him to sit still, do his work, get along with his peers was hard, but he was great in front of the classroom. So, I mean, that was always but that's the way a lot of kids can shine. And we just have to look for those ways and think, well, how can we make this fun for a kid to be able to
Yeah.
do?
I mean, it's
Mhm.
I look at it like you wanna help him and not coddle him, you know what I
Right.
mean? If that's the thing, because
Yeah.
it's like understand, but don't pity. I say
Yes.
and I think that's where a lot of that I think a lot of that comes from. What I wanted to touch on because you brought it up was all this standardized crap in schools is
Right.
it's no longer about it's it's always hitting that benchmark of whatever because
Yeah.
and I really think that that's because of the whole funding situation
Right.
with schools. I think that it's but I mean, but what do you do? Do you privatize it? No, because then it's going to be even worse, probably, right? I mean,
I know. I mean, I wish that there could just be maybe where we do see what they know. Maybe you do a test in the beginning to kind of get that baseline, then you see what they learn like towards at the end. And I know that's the hard part. I think testing has a purpose. I think we do need to understand maybe what somebody's good at, maybe what
yeah,
somebody's not good at. But I don't think it's one of those things that just determines a child's life or their future. I can remember whenever I was in school, the guidance counselor gave us this test and said it was some kind of science assessment or some kind of mechanical reasoning and said, "This is the most important test you're ever going to take in your life, and if you don't pass this, you're going to end up in an undesirable neighborhood." And I get people that want results of this test all the time from from employers. Well, I know I didn't do well on it, number 1. And number 2, I've never had an employer that has asked for a copy of how well I did on that test. And so I think that if we put testing in the right place where it
Um,
shows, okay, this is maybe what they are good at, what they're not. This may be some things that we might be able to work on as a school. I think that's all right, but I think it's when we just make this that this is the most important thing someone's ever going to do. I'm definitely not in favor of that.
what age group was that? Because that seems if it was like a elementary school, that just seems absolutely ridiculous to
Well,
say.
whenever I was in, it had to be ninth or 10th grade, so it was high school level.
Oh, okay, that makes sense, but still, it's also what
Yeah, we try not to say that now with
yeah, of
students
course.
that because, well, we get all kinds of students that come from different places in our district. We have people, we have families in all different situations, from very wealthy to ones that are middle class to other ones who are really struggling. So we can't say that because I don't know, there could be a child that's in that class that does live maybe in one of those neighborhoods, and I'm sure there were children that were living in that neighborhood that um, guidance counselor was talking about, and that just that was never a really good thing. And then that instills panic. You're thinking, well, what if I don't
Yeah,
do well in
that's
this thing?
yeah. Yeah, and that's I mean, that's just you're kinda setting the kid up for
Yeah,
failure when you say that. It's like, "This is the most important thing you're ever gonna do." I'm like, "No, I don't
no,
that doesn't
it
happen till
really
after
was
high school, buddy." Yeah, and it's not, and it's I think that there's some people that they go into teaching and think it's an ego thing, right? Like
right.
they're like, "Well, I'm a teacher." Like, there was a video circulating a long time ago.
Hmm.
Was this kid, he had long blonde hair,
Hmm.
and he was just telling the teacher to teach. And she's like, "You can leave," and the whole thing went viral, but and he was I think I don't know, I mean, teachers should be paid a good wage because they
Hmm.
as long as they're not indoctrinating kids,
Right.
that's where I come in. I don't know where you're at, but I'm in Florida, and we had the, for lack of a better term, they called it the "Don't Say Gay" bill in Florida,
Hmm.
and it was there was a thing where teachers couldn't discuss their sexuality to kids,
Hmm.
and I think that's a fair thing to do because
Right.
kindergartners don't even know about that stuff. But anyways, so I think that there comes a level with some teachers, not all, obviously, because I could name far more good teachers I had coming up or growing up
Right.
than I did that were bad ones. You know, Mrs. McCarthy, she pops to my head. Mrs. Brown, all these people, like I can just they were gems. They were good teachers, and when you have someone that really you can tell that cares, and I can tell that you care, and it's like so it makes the difference in a child's life, and it's so I guess I made that point to say that the ones that are not
Hmm.
as up to snuff are that they can just do the exact opposite.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So I have 2 questions that I ask people that come on my show.
Okay.
Okay. The first one is for you is what are 2 core beliefs that make you who you are?
I think two core beliefs that make me who I am is I have, like, success doesn't always come in the package that I expect. It's come in something even better in my life, and I also think the best thing that another belief that I have is there's just so much beauty in the world, and I almost missed all of that. We're thinking that, okay, my life will just be perfect without that. And without having a disability, but then it turned out that there was a lot more beauty. And then this is all, then the third thing,
Mhm.
if I could add,
Absolutely.
I can't control what somebody thinks about me having a disability or how they're going to respond or their actions in life and that, but I can control my actions and how I think and how I believe, and I can also control what I do in my own attitude. And that took me a long time to realize because I really put a lot of emphasis on what somebody else thought of me. And I think it's once I finally figured out I don't have any control over that, that really changed my life.
Yeah, 100%. I think uh, I read it somewhere that we don't people don't think about us as much as we think about them
Yeah.
thinking about us, right? Like
Right, right.
it's like somebody that they don't if you're not in front of them, they don't think about you. And I
Right.
because we're very social creatures, right? So
Mhm,
we want to fit in, we want to do all that
mhm.
stuff, but I've always, I can't say always, but as I've gotten older, I don't care about that anymore. It's like if you're
Yeah.
going to like me or you don't. And and as I will hold the door and let you leave. you
Right,
know
right.
yeah, it's just like
Exactly.
yeah, and it's like you don't have to like me. And as I told one of my friends one time as they were exiting my life, I said, "Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you." They figured it out eventually, but it's just kind of funny, right? So you said you enjoy writing. Have you written a book or thought about writing a book?
I have not written my own book yet. I've had stories published in 4 anthologies, and
Yeah,
I have a
that's
blog where I write about my life with a learning disability called Michelle's Mission. I've also had other articles published places, and I would like to write a book someday. I have a children's story about dyscalculia, which I think is important because a lot of people aren't aware of it, and I'm also working on a book about my life, and I gotta really, hone in on finishing that.
yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it's good to have goals. I never thought about writing a fiction book or anything like that.
Be something I would like to do too someday. Have not had very much luck with writing that. That's not really my forte, but I
Yeah,
mean, it's definitely something to consider.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and this is like I didn't realize I'd be good at being a surgical tech, until I went to school for it because I always wanted
Right.
to be a chef. You know what I mean? And I was working in that field, and
Mhm.
I really enjoyed the cooking aspect of it. I didn't care for the environmental aspect of being a
Mhm.
chef, but I didn't care about the business part of it or anything like that. So I transitioned to medical field because the reason I remember I
Mhm.
was working at a restaurant locally here, and it was Thanksgiving. We served 1,100 people in like a 5 hour time frame.
My goodness.
And I'm like, "This is too much." And you give up every weekend, you give up every holiday or major
Right.
holidays and all that stuff, so it's just not it wasn't for me. So, and I was like I had gone through, I was what's called a CNA, which is a certified nurse's aide, and, did that, and then I was like, "I don't wanna do this that long either because it's just you don't last long because you're lifting and pulling on patients that are dead weight and all that."
Right.
So I did that for a year or 2, and then I heard about what my current job is, which is a surgical tech, and then I went to school for it, and I've been doing it for 25 years. So it's, you don't know what you're gonna be good at until you try it is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. Yeah.
The second question is, before I forget, you are ready to move on to the next life or whatever it may be, whatever you choose to believe.
Mhm.
What do you wanna be remembered for?
I wanna be remembered for, the impact that I made on the lives of others, that I helped other people. I helped others that had disabilities, be able to go on and pursue their dreams, or I just helped maybe in whatever capacity for someone to feel heard or to feel known. I definitely wanna do that. I wanna leave that impact of, just beauty, on the world with seeing how I saw um, flowers and butterflies and that sort of thing. I just want to make that difference in the life for people with and without disabilities.
Yeah, well, I think you're doing really good work. I can tell you really wanna help people, and that's a rare thing these days. So, but I wanna take the time out to say thanks for coming on my show. Where can people find you if they wanna talk to you?
Sure, you can find me in my blog, www.michellesmission.com.
Awesome. You can find the show on Spotify and YouTube, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for
Yes.
listening, everybody.